Dear attendees, ladies and gentlemen, after 2 intensive days, the summit offers today the last page of its program, starting with a keynote address in the field of lighting. In home and building design, lighting is an important element changing and transforming spaces. The impact of lighting is even extended to public places, especially in the night. Today's keynote address will be delivered by Mr. Mohammed Al-Twaijri, CEO of Lambient Saudi Arabia, a company that's offering advanced lighting solutions. Our keynote speaker, Mr. Mohammed, has graduated from KSU. He also earned its MBA from Xavier University in Cincinnati, Ohio, in the US. He holds as well a professional lighting design certificate from the Design Academy of the United Kingdom. I will not tell you more, as we are all waiting for a great presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on stage Mr. Mohammed Al-Twaijri.
Hello, everyone. I think most of the audience, they speak Arabic, but I think we have a live stream, so I'll be doing it in English. And well, first of all, thank you for coming, for being here. I think the topic about advanced lighting should start with we always think about advanced lighting in terms of products and items. What we want to understand before that is why are we providing advanced lighting solutions. So our focus mainly in lighting effects and lighting design. Then we can find the tool that achieve that solution. So I will be talking about human-centric lighting and how lighting affects us as humans, and the space we use always, and how it will we utilize lighting in such a way that is human-friendly, let's say. So we know natural light. It's part of our solutions or lighting. When we design light, we start with natural light, and that's where we work together with architects and interior designers to define the source of natural light before we jump into artificial light. We measure the lumens, to get enough light through the space, and we know that the sunlight is produce about 10 million lumens, and what the amount we get inside buildings is much less than that because of reflection of the reflection of the sunlight in other buildings and into the inner space. The lux is the amount of the lights that reflect on the square meter of an area, and it's an important metric. I'm just giving an introduction about just some essential knowledge to understand lighting, how the physics of lighting react. And the moonlight, as you see, is 1 lux, and if you go in a full moon night in the desert where you see the reflection of the moonlight on the sand, then you can get the amount of level there. You can walk on that level of light. Hey, so we when we talk about advanced lighting solutions, we want to talk about how we start polluting. If you've ever heard of light pollution in an area, it's something that we cannot see a clear sky. When you want to see the stars and the moon, you need to go out of cities, and then you can see the beautiful sky. That's not the case anymore with so much pollution, light pollution in our cities. All right, so human and light. So we start the design, lighting design, with the human, or who utilize the space. The first thing we start, the adaptation. I mean, have you know, when you walk into a room and you turn off the lights, you barely see anything, it's dark. And when you sit like a couple of seconds, then you start like feeling things. So adaptation is important for human psychology. Color perception is another thing. I mean, lighting design started with Richard Cayley back in 1930s and 1940s, and his way of explaining light, natural light especially, saying, you know, light is not like static, it's dynamic. When we start the morning, you get blue sky, in the afternoon you get white sky, and then later on at sunset you get the orange sky. So the perception of also the color on other material is noticed here. The field of vision or visual field. Normally as humans we have like a 40 degrees of visual field. I mean the focus. When you go to museums you focus on the artifacts and exhibits, instead of looking at the ceiling. But when you look at the ceiling, it's messy, if you know what I mean. I mean, with all the track lights and high bays. But we don't care because we see our field of vision is focused on what is in 40 degrees and what's in front of us. Right. Another thing is hierarchy of perception for humans. Hierarchy of perception at the top of the pyramid is the people or human shape. When you are in a nature place where you have river and mountains and animals or whatever, and then from far away you see a shape of a human. That's where you unconsciously your eye will go there and you'll see who is that or what is that. So that's the top of the hierarchy. Second is movement. I mean, when you have sound or movement, that's what attracts your attention, and consciously you move towards that. And then we have brightness and contrast, where you can control where to attract people's eyes. You focus on something. And I think at the top, the people and movement is another field with theatrical lighting design in that pyramid. But as architectural lighting designers, we focus on brightness and contrast where we can control, because the top two, the people and movement, that's mostly out of our control unless we are in a theatrical setting. Right. So we explained this before, movement, right. So, as I said, as architectural lighting design, what our area of expertise comes in controlling the brightness and contrast, or how Richard Cayley put it as brilliance playing with brilliance. So we tend to focus on the point of interest in architectural shapes or interior material, and by focusing the lights on them, we attract people attention to these areas. And maybe if we have some flaws in other areas, then we can hide it in a certain way, in lighting. Yeah, that's architectural. All right, so to start with the lighting design, we have three main layers. I mean, and these layers came back later as addition, but it all can go into the three main layers: the ambient lighting, the task lighting, and the accent lighting. So the ambient is what makes us see in general. That could be like indirect lighting, like the sunlight reflecting inside the building, or it could be a cove light hidden inside the ceiling. This is an essential or base layer of light that makes you just illuminate the area in equal luminance level. However, it will not focus on the point of attentions or the aesthetic nature or aspect of the place. So then comes the accent light. The accent light is where we focus on elements inside the space, like paintings, decorative pieces, to create, I mean, instead of being like a dull space where you have two different layers or level that makes more aesthetic look to the place. Then the third layer is the task light. I mean, depending on the task of the place. I mean, we all know probably in Saudi Arabia, our living room, we do everything there. We eat, we sleep, and we watch TV. But depending on the area or let's say the dining area or sleeping area like the bedroom, we understand the task of the place. Like the task, for example, reading. You need a reading light. That's where you add another layer. And you have guide lighting. Guide lighting is like, I don't know how to put it, but it's like a path light where you can direct people in an indirect way that creates a path using lighting. So we talk about this, the task, the accent, guidelines. And another decorative lighting. I mean, decorative lighting, they add it as another layer, but you can include it in one of the three layers, the ambient or accent or task lighting. So decorative lighting can be a chandelier in the middle of a room, which creates an ambient to the place. Or it can be like a table lamp where it can be a task light at the same time. Some people would argue that it could be another layer, but I would include it in some of the three main layers, one of the three main layers. Here, one of the challenges in lighting design, we had this case study of a project it's done for our partners at USUS. They had this terracotta panel, and the challenge was to illuminate these panels in a way to enhance the texture of the material itself, the terracotta panel. And we had different ideas, but we came up with a grazer light where you light the panel from in ground up, and this will create shadow where you can, from far away, you see or you feel the texture, or you see the texture of the material. So also to make it in a dynamic way, I mean, especially for commercial buildings where you have different events or like the National Day or other events, then you can use the controller. Then we have to work with the lighting control system providers together as partners to have different scenarios for the buildings. Sustainability, I mean, there are like, in lighting design, we always try to minimize the use of fixture, but maximize the effect of these fixtures. So some people would say, well, we normally use a spotlight of 7 watts, then we fill up the room with many spotlights, but through lighting design we can maximize the fixture capability and reduce the amount. Then you can get an equal output of illuminance. I think this is it. If there is any questions.
I do have one question, actually. I want to relate the sustainability issue to also the amount of energy that we're using, and we're looking at LEDs these days rather than hot lamps. And in architectural lighting, is this best practice to start using more LED in the future?
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, in Saudi Arabia, in our case, the government have banned all other sources of light. Now you can only get LEDs into the market. All the halogen, fluorescent, incandescent lamps are banned already. And also, talking about sustainability, LEDs, of course, they consume less energy, and with lighting design, you can improve or use less sources of lighting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mohammed. If we could invite you in the middle of the stage so that we can present your trophy and for your nice photo op. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mohammed. It was a significant keynote address indeed. Please note that the next session will start at 4:05 p.m. and it will be related to smart housing, urban energy transition, and sustainability. Thank you, and hope to see you there.
Thank you for joining us for the last session at the Future of Building International Summit. We will be starting in about 5 minutes. We are just getting the live stream up and running because we have people watching at universities and in their offices. So please bear with us for 5 minutes. If you would like a translation of the session, we can do so. We have various languages that are available, 57 of them, by using the QR code. Thank you. Welcome to the last session of the Future of Buildings International Summit. I would like to invite our esteemed speakers up to the stage. If you could please take your seats near your name, and then we will start the panel. So please come up, speakers, and take your seats. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, and I'd like to welcome you all to this panel. If we could start from my left and just go down the row, if you could introduce yourself and your interest in the topic on smart housing, urban energy transition and sustainability, please.
Thank you, Dr. James. Thanks for having us all here. I'm sure it will be, I would say, a great panel discussion, as all of our panels here are from different sectors. So we will all complement to each other. My name is Mustafa Al-Hakim. I'm an energy and power consultant. I work in many, I would say, power generation companies like Areva, Alstom, GE, ABB, Hitachi, and I work also for Neom Green Hydrogen Company. So I have around 15 years of experience. Mostly I'm focusing now on green hydrogen and sustainability projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Doctor.
Yes. First of all, thank you to the organizers. Thank you for leading this session. My name is Mohammed Al-Sarf. I'm the Carbon Department Director at Tilad Environment Group. Tilad Environment is basically an environmental consulting firm for more than 16 years, focusing on 3 pillars: land, air, and water. My role is basically leading their sustainability and decarbonization efforts. I'm also the founder and president of the Sustainability Professionals of Saudi Arabia. It's an NGO established earlier this year, and surprisingly, in less than a year, we have more than 15,000 members from across the world, not just Saudi. 60 to 70% are from Saudi. So it's a platform basically to connect all of sustainability professionals cross-sector under one umbrella, to give them the platform to talk, to negotiate, to communicate, and collaborate for a sustainable Saudi. Thank you very much.
Excellent, thank you. Mr. Faisal.
Thank you so much. Well, my name is Faisal. I'm bringing 10 years of experience in energy and Is my voice clear? Cool. So I'm bringing experience of energy in more than 10 years in public and private sector. I've been Minister of Energy. I've been in a private sector energy consulting, and currently I'm working as a consultant, BCG, and recently graduated with an MBA from the University of Cambridge.
Thank you. Mr. Hussam?
First, thank you, Mr. James, for let me join in this session. Actually, it's our pleasure to be a part of Saudi Build in his round 34. I am Hussam Mode. I graduated from Palestine Technical University in 2014. I start my career in MEP construction, and now, alhamdulillah, we complete over than 10 years in our career as MEP construction and the position business development manager. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'm going to start with you, actually. People would like to know what kind of business opportunities there are in the smart home sector. So if you could just run us by the main areas there.
Actually, regarding to the opportunity in this market now, if we said why the smart home, now all the customer, they're looking for 3 things in the smart home. They're looking for comfort, they're looking for security, and to make the easy life, the life to be easy in the easy way. In our position or in our career as MEP construction, actually we're looking for how to grow the business, how to to be our service satisfy for the customer. So if you're looking now to the market and you're looking for all the developer companies, now they try to put the smart systems in each services or in each sectors. And for example, now we are working in industrial and residential. We are looking for now the business, it's going to growth in the smart system. Regarding to the HVAC, in security system, and in a lot of parts, they are looking for the smart way how to can use it or control it from your phone, from your voice, like that. So I believe now, yani the smart home, it's going to grow more, inshallah, in next year. And this is what we are looking for now, and we are to put all our experience in this part.
Okay. And Mr. Faisal, do you think that the smart home, there's a relationship with clean energy in a smart home? Because, you know, most smart homes are using the electric grid to do that. Or, you know, my Alexa unit, for example, it's not that smart, but it works. But then, you know, we have television controllers with batteries in them, for example. So what's the clean energy and the smart home relationship?
Well, I think that's a really good question. When it comes for clean energy, most of these smart home technologies are energy efficient and that can reduce many emissions. And from that perspective, it has an impact on climate change. And from that perspective, actually, we can look into our innovation ecosystem in the region, mainly in Saudi Arabia. So when we need to compare that ecosystem Saudi and GCC to the other global ecosystem, we are producing very good founders, but we can see most of those founders focusing on other technologies. So we see people in fintech, in consumer tech, but we don't see a lot in the region actually, people who's developing something in that space. And this is a gap that we need really someone who can fill that gap. And this is one of the components we are looking for as a talent. The second thing, and also the investors. Most of investors actually, and that because of their criteria, focusing on, I would say, is the payback period for that investment doesn't take a long time. So they can get it much faster than other investments. And there's another challenge we can see. The third challenge is the enabler, and we talk about enabler universities, government agencies, accelerator incubators. We don't see till today, incubator or accelerator focusing mainly on energy innovations, which include the smart home technologies. My recent conversation with many investors in the region, when I asked them why we don't see any portfolio companies in your fund related, and the question was very clear, is we don't know how much the market, the engagement with the stakeholders is quite complicated, and if founder cannot identify the needs, then we cannot estimate the market. So that's the kind of a challenge. We don't see a lot of people in that space, while we see some people in other verticals such as fintech or consumer tech or whatever.
And then do you, just to add on to that, what about the talent development side to actually implement this kind of technology? I mean, where are we on that so far?
I think this is a really good question. When it comes for talent, we talk about innovators, researchers, mentors, and I think what we are missing here is we see very good research is happening at universities, but we are not seeing very good conversion from the lab to the market. So this is the gap. We need someone to step in, and then we have producible research which can get to the market. We see something is happening now at CACST, but I think we need much more talent, as not only local talent, we need global talent to come, and I think that space is never gonna be only by local talent. We need diverse talent pool where they can produce those, or at least we can have that kind of partnership with other global ecosystem. Those founders, those startup can come and then can scale up their startup here in the region.
That's very interesting. So then I'm going to move on to you, Doctor. And, you know, in terms of green building or green solutions, you know, we've talked about the talent, there's a lack there. But then also the adoption of these types of technologies. Can you give us your take on that? And because obviously, Talad, this is your business. And how do people adopt this? Or is there an acceleration towards more adoption? Or is there an education job to be done there as well on the consumer?
Well, that's a question for maybe a couple of days to answer, but I'll try to summarize it in a few sentences. One of my prior experiences was working with the U.S. Green Building Council and providing services here in Saudi as the regional manager for the LEED, which is the Leadership in Energy Environmental Design certification, which is specifically for green buildings, certifying buildings that are practicing their green achievements. It started back in 2008, 2009 when Saudi really started to adopt this concept of green buildings, but it didn't really pick up until maybe the 2018, 2019. It really boomed with several case studies like CAFT, King Abdullah Financial District, you have CAPSARC, you have most of the giga projects, the Red Sea Development, for example, they have committed 75% of their assets to be LEED certified. So looking back at where we were and looking now where we are, I see there's a lot of adoption for green building principles, and not just for the sake of the certification. That was the perception previously, just to certify my building to get a certificate or a plaque on the wall. Nowadays, no, it's more than that. For example, it's already embedded as a sustainability standard in the Saudi Building Code to have a minimum level of sustainability principles, energy efficiency, water efficiency. There's also Chapter 10 of the Building Code, which is the Green Building Code, and I had the privilege of working with them on that code. So it's really a collaborative effort to promote that concept of green building. So what our role now as professionals in the industry, part of my background is also in education. I was a professor in university, so and that's why we provided this platform for the sustainable professionals as an education platform to get the information from different stakeholders. So the role now is really spreading the awareness and spreading the knowledge. As my colleague has said, about the difference and the gap between what is available in the lab and what's available in the market, or how do they link and all of that. Until now, I see that as a problem. There's still a gap in the awareness and the knowledge. And something like this as a session for spreading this awareness is what we still need to be developing further on. But in terms of regulations, it's there. In terms of support, the government is really pushing forward. As I said, His Royal Highness Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has actually embedded this in the Saudi vision. The Saudi vision is built on the 3 pillars of sustainability. So there's no kind of way out of it now. If you're not adopting sustainability and green building concepts, you're going to be left out, and maybe eventually there's going to be penalties.
So, I mean, from your organization, you described earlier the Sustainability Association. I mean, do you work with developers, like small developers, large developers, on this idea of, the whole energy piece that we're talking about here today?
Yeah, definitely. We work with a lot of stakeholders, but because we are just got our official license earlier this year in February. So, the word has gone out and we have lots of interest in joining the association. So at the moment, we're just providing, the support to individuals at the moment. Next year, our plan is really to open up for organizations and companies and projects and connect them with international stakeholders. So we are actually a partner with the International Society for Sustainability Professionals, which is, has partnerships in more than 50 countries. So we have built now successfully, alhamdulillah, this year the society, the actual community. Next year, our goal is really to build up the actual kind of work and collaboration with different entities and collaborations. The ministry, which is this event is under its partners, the Ministry of Housing and Municipalities, is actually going to be one of the main sponsors for the association.
Great, thank you. I'm going to change tack a bit here, Mustafa, and just I want to start. We talked a bit about smart homes. I want to start talking about smart cities, if that's okay, because energy consumption. If we look at Riyadh and the light pollution that exudes at night time, and the amount of energy we're using, we know LED lights are out there, but we still have a lot of work to do in that area. So, talk to me about smart cities and energy consumption.
Yeah, maybe that's a very good question. If I will highlight, most of the giga projects which are happening here in Saudi Arabia are on the concept to be smart cities. When we talk about, as Dr. Mohammed said, the Red Sea, NEOM, all the construction projects here are taking consideration to be, I would say, smart. The main takeaway here, for example, is the transition. So once we are transition from conventional generation, for example, to renewable, I think there is a gap. The gap is now, it's been narrowed. We can see Ministry of Energy and the principal buyers, they are releasing huge projects for renewable energy. Taking, I would say, this step to have 50% of our power to be from renewable source by 2030, it's a huge step and a huge contribution, because we are oil and gas based, so we are taking off, let's assume 50%, we are relying on 50%. But the issue here is to have an idea, because the conventional power generation is based on a forecast, so we forecast the previous days, what was the generation capacity, and we generate for the coming days. Whereas for renewable, it's different. So it's a forecast on weather. So what would be the weather? What is the compensation is required here? Can we rely on it or not? So the mentality is completely from, I would say, forecasting to predicting. So the prediction, it can, I would say, is different. So after all of this, once we have the integration, I would say the main goal is a data-driven. So once we have the data from the generation, from the consumption, we will be able to, I would say, penetrate it and make it in a smart way. So that's the takeaway from the big picture of smart cities.
Could you just give us some examples in terms of the urban energy transition program, what we're seeing at the moment? So, you know, that's taking place. I do know that all the street lights, the street light bulbs are being replaced in Saudi,
Yes.
for example.
I think everyone knows Tershid company. So Tershid is one of BIF company. They have taken a role to make a replacement, for example, for all street lights to be from halogen gas to LED. And you know, the halogen gas, they are consuming a huge power. They are, I would say, they generate heat. Whereas the LED, they generate clean power, more, I would say, light than the halogen. So that's one portion of Tershid. Nevertheless, they are also participating in a wider scope. Also, there are other companies where each is taking a role to drive this. So if I will give an instance about Masar Riyadi project, for example, it's one of the project will enhance the position of Riyadh on the sustainability.
Excellent, thank you. Dr. Mohammed, business opportunities that can be derived from energy efficiency. Can you talk to our live stream and our audience out there some of the examples that you've seen, or that Toledo actually, you know, is part of your business, and that obviously this drive is going to open up more opportunities for other businesses as well?
It's actually a big market that's really expanding at the moment at an exponential rate. Just today, I had a big discussion with one of the Iceland companies coming in here in Saudi, but their focus is basically on geothermal energy. So when we talk about the energy efficiency side, and our previous speaker in the previous session talked about this specifically with the equipment and material and fixtures that are available in the market. It's no longer available to have non-efficient fixtures. So we're already past that stage. So this is a good thing. The second thing now, the second stage, or the second wave, you might call it, is basically the renewables in that movement. So moving towards what has been said about the transition to renewables by 50% by 2030, I believe we will actually reach that target before 2030.
Wow.
Yeah, that's my look at the markets. And our leadership, they're very ambitious. And many of the set targets that were supposed to be met at 2030, we met them already. Be it in the tourism industry, be it in the religious kind of sectors and so on. So I wouldn't be surprised that we reach that 50% threshold before 2030, maybe a year or two, if that's possible, especially with what we're seeing with the giga projects. Now, the same thing is happening with the smaller developments, looking at the real estate developers or, commercial developers. They're actually promoting their initiatives, not because, let's face it, not because they love the environment and sustainability and, tree huggers, but because there's a financial, gain behind it, which is something that, 15 years ago when I started this journey in sustainability, nobody actually, cared, not even for financial perspective. So now you see in the market, and if you go to the exhibition and you see this becoming not as a trend, but as a norm, that energy efficiency should be there. It's better for the quality of life, better for the, the wallet. We always say that, if you're not, if your wallet is not itching you, believe me, it will. So I think, we are past that stage of, communicating the importance of energy efficiency to becoming it as a norm. And quite, honestly, I wouldn't, as again, say that any project, especially big projects, would be penalized if they don't apply it to some extent. So the market is really, rapidly evolving.
Okay, great. Well, I'm just going to pick up that point on financial gain and its relationship, and this is for you, Mr. Faisals, the relationship between government policy, financial gain in the energy efficiency market, and going back to what you do in terms of smart homes. I mean, what that relationship is key to making sure that we reach the targets or exceed the targets, but that financial gain is also necessary to get the investment. Can you just talk us through that equation, please?
I think here we are talking about two rules. So firstly...
Can I ask you to go close to the microphone? Sorry.
Yeah. I think we are talking about two rules here. So what is the role of public sector, represented by the government, and secondly, what is the role of private sector? And then we ask why government must act and take that step forward and how they will take it. The same goes for the private sector. So the government, I think, why they need to act is Saudi Arabia now, they have very clear plan for low carbon future. And this is for many governments, that mandate is already placed. Now, if we need to achieve that target now, we need to develop policies and regulatory framework, incentives that can encourage innovators, encourage entrepreneurs, encourage companies to adopt this. But goes back to the same point we discussed before, is one of the main challenge is founders, innovators, they don't know actually where are the bins. So that's kind of a challenge, the regularity, the stakeholder engagement, it's kind of complicated. So what I would call it is policy co-creation. Government to bring a private sector, innovators, R&D center, understanding what are the needs for the region and how can we prioritize those needs, and then they can develop this policy based on that needs. Then the case will be very clear for innovators. They can innovate something, make sure that will fit in that ecosystem. Investor that will make sure that opportunity they can make out of it, so they will not develop something and they will not get a customer. And thirdly, which is really important, we need to have public-private partnership. So what I mean by this, public capital, we need it at very early stage to de-risk this investment. If you are a private investor, I will not invest in technology that takes time for 10 years. Or might be it can be failed. So in this case, we need to have this R&D incentives going back to the universities, develop something, reduce the risk, allow private capital to get in. That's at very early stage. At longer stage, you need public capital all the way at the growth stage. This is where we can see the government can play the role. For private sector, if we put incentives for private sector, if you adopt or if you get that, definitely you will have some benefit. But there is another thing might be many people they are not aware about it. Many businesses in Saudi Arabia or in GCC, they are involving or operating in Europe. And there is nowadays, there are restrictions about emissions and ETS scheme in Europe. And Scope 3 emissions will impacting you even if you are not in Europe. So businesses, the private sector, they and board member, they must from now understand how that value chain, supply chain can impact their businesses even if they are not Europe. And that will come. So from there, they can adopt those technologies in their infrastructure and integrate it. And from that point, they can then mitigate the risk that they might face in the future. This is where private sector, they can look into this problem from that perspective.
I just want to question you a bit more about that because we've seen examples in the UK and Europe where there's government subvention incentives given to businesses, and then they use that as a crutch as part of their business model. And then the incentives, once the target's reached, the subvention's withdrawn, the incentive is withdrawn, and some of those companies just can't survive anymore. I mean, that would be the next stage on of hitting the target. How do you feel about that? I mean, do you think how would a business cushion itself to make sure that was still profitable once that subvention or incentive was withdrawn?
I think if we look for the clean technologies, some of these clean technologies, it's quite to be profitable nowadays. But we have a bunch of those technologies is profitable and much cheaper than traditional technologies. And I think those private companies, they can focus at that stage on those technologies which they can still make a profit out of it. It's not much costing them, and return on investment much manageable. We talk about 5 to 8 years. And I think it's not just about being in green or just being in sustainability, because the need to adopt this, you need it if you need to operate or if you need to run business somewhere else in the world. That's part of Scope 3 emissions. So it's not just only we need to be wearing a hat of sustainability people or we care about. We need, for sake of businesses, not for sake of sustainability at certain points.
And do you think that expertise and those products can be exported from Saudi Arabia?
Sorry, couldn't hear the question.
Do you think that expertise and those products can be exported from Saudi Arabia?
Well, I think if we look to now King Salman Park in East region now, we see many international companies, they move and they start producing. But for those technology exactly, I think we are good at some of it. And we have very good now in terms of hydrogen, still at not very good attractive. But I think for other technologies, if we bring a private sector government, I think that can be generated, can be manufactured, can be producible from Saudi Arabia. That's not that challenging.
Excellent, thank you.
If I can
yes, Doctor, please, yeah.
If I can add to that, and second, what my colleague has said about the incentives, I think not just the public-private partnership is needed, but what I also see in the market that banks are also starting to announce they have these green loans. Okay, so I've heard of this of a few of the banks here. So that's something excellent. The other thing you mentioned about the international companies and investment coming into Saudi. CAFT, for example, King Abdullah Financial District, is now housing most of the international firms here as they open their headquarters here in Saudi. The surprising thing is, one of their requirements is I need an office that's sustainable and green and certified. So developers are picking up on that and seeing this trend in the market. BCG, for example, I know is one of them. They have these regulations, internal regulations, that they need to operate in a healthy environment, in an office, be it a house. So there's a lack of availability of those certain offices in the market. So as I said, there's lots of incentives, and this is something new in the market. This year specifically, I've been having these kind of questions from different developers. How can we certify our offices? Can we renovate our commercial spaces? Because we see this trend of requests from these international companies coming into Saudi.
Mr. Oda, are you seeing a take-up or developers coming to your company to increase the sustainability or, the smart home security systems, energy efficiency? Are you witnessing that at ground level?
Yes, exactly. As I said, we are MEP contractor. We are doing the AC systems. We are doing the security systems, all these things. So our goal, how to make this all services controlled by the customer himself. So, as know, there is a lot of application for Apple, there is Alexa, there is a lot of things now. We have to integrate our system with this application or other applications to follow the customer request. For example, if I told you the customer, he need to control in his AC. Okay, so we have to integrate it or interface his ACs with his phone, for example, or the light system, same situation, the security system, CCTV, all these things should be controlled by the customer himself. So we are follow like a statement, let the customer dream, and we have to build his dream. Like that, we have to follow. This is from our side as a contractor.
Okay, thank you. I'd now like to go to Mustafa Al-Hakim again, please. And I want to go on about the energy transition because we've been talking about incentives, we've been talking about this public-private partnership and the transition that we're looking at. How does this, in terms of a smart city, how does urban mobility and the smart city work? Because we know that, for example, there's the Sia car that's being developed in Jeddah. We have the Lucid being developed, and there may be incentives for that as well. But it's all going to cut down on the energy, isn't it? It's all going to cut down on traditional energy.
Yes, so maybe I will start answering from different angle and I will come to your point. So I would say we will be a smart country. It's not only about smart city. We are having a huge grid connecting Gulf countries together. Now there is a connectivity between Saudi Arabia and Egypt, as well as 5 forecasted projects to connect with Iraq, Jordan, Turkey, Greek, and India. By having all of this, and guess what? This grid will be smart grid. So we will be able, I would say, to utilize smart power, if I would say. I don't want to use smart a lot, but as well as to export green energy to the world. Because once we connect it to all of these countries, we will be able to supply them with, I would say, green power. Now, coming back to Seer, Lucid, I would say, again, we are in the transition period. There is a new BIF company, EVIQ. I think they are taking it on their shoulder to make more than 5,000 charging points. They are CPO, charging point operators. So they are in the transition now of, I would say, change management, because as you are aware now, if we take simple mathematics, the population of Riyadh is around 8 million, where 2.5 million already cars exist. So that means there is a huge demand, a huge infrastructure to sustain and make people trust the EVs. I think that's all my insight toward all of this. So once we have the smart grid, we will have also the internal capabilities. This will shape, I would say, a huge transition for the urban planning to consume the renewable power.
So, Dr. Mohammed, talking about the smart grid, how does that going to impact on Talid and the work you do and the future of the Saudi transition?
The connection basically between what can be done in terms of adopting the smart technologies and smart grid, it's still not at, you know, the consumer level. As I said, as I might see it in the market, it's still at the government level, and still if you connect to a smart system or smart grid, you can't really purchase it directly, or it can't be kind of, you know, reducing your energy bill. So that's still in the process. Maybe a few years we're going to be able to do that. You know, generally people should have, you know, compared to other countries, you know, Europe, US, Australia. I was in the US, Australia. You had the option to purchase green power or regular fossil fuel power generation, you know, power. That's still, you know, even the regulations that have been set forward to really connect the grid to renewable energy is just recent. So it's still developing and still evolving. So what we're trying to do at Tilad Environment is basically, you know, first of all, from the awareness, you know, part of this movement is, you know, what's available in the market in terms of regulations, in terms of equipment and material and, you know, services. I always say, you know, and I don't like to use the word smart in terms of houses or construction, because it's not just about, you know, installing these systems. And I always say this in the similar events. You need to be smart about being smart. You know, it's not just about applying the systems and you say, "Khalas, I'm energy efficient. My building is smart." No, that's not it. You know, that's not the end game there. You still need to really acquire the knowledge, the actual, you know, impact of adopting those technologies in the construction sector. What is it going to have? You know, my specialty at Tilad Environment is basically on the carbon sector. So 60 to 70% of what we do in our houses is contributing to the overall carbon emission of the construction industry, so the built environment. So installing these smart technologies, or, you know, technologies in general in buildings, can actually contribute to more greenhouse gas emissions, more carbon, because they're going to consume more energy, and, you know, it's a vicious cycle. So are you being smart about using smart technology or not? So in terms of the connection to the renewables, as I said, there's a lot of interest from international companies coming into Saudi. There's lots of eyes on Saudi in terms of helping Saudi achieve its renewable target by 50%. And it's not just on the burden of the country and the government to reach that goal. We have to do something to help that goal be achieved. So we at Tilad Environment do that. Other consulting firms as well are helping in that, achieving that as well. So it's a lot of, you know, efforts that need to be combined together.
So, Mr. Faisal, talking about this combined effort, that goes back to your point about the partnerships between government and the private sector. So how would you suggest we accelerate that process to reach what the doctor says we're going to exceed the target before 2030? What would you suggest? I'm asking you to crystal ball here.
Yeah, I would like to summarize as much as I can. We don't have too much time. So I think we need to do in one way, we need to look which ecosystem today in the world they have very good experience and how they adapt those technologies. And when it comes for clean technologies, we have certain ecosystems. So we talk about Stockholm, Cambridge in the UK, Boston. So these are very good at de-risking early stage technologies. So we need to go to them and we need to engage with those ecosystems. We need to see how they have done things successfully, and then we can adapt. So I think if we develop the same way that they have developed, and if we get the same experience, we can develop two things, which is really important. The first thing is repeatability. If we develop one technology and we repeat again, that's very good. The second thing, transferability. At a certain point, those will move from start up to scale up. So we can benefit from that skills and experience to get to that level. I wouldn't go too much and repeat again what government must do, but I think getting all stakeholder, getting all private sector universities, R&D center, innovators, entrepreneurs together, co-create policy together, I think this is where things much easier and aligning together all the stakeholders.
And do we think that, and the consumers, the part they're going to play, how do we create that critical mass of adoption?
I think this is a really good point, but I'm thinking from developer point of view. Many of products now development today in the world, in Saudi Arabia now, it's developed by developers. So if we are successfully getting those developers, we can embed those technologies into that. We don't see a lot nowadays coming from individuals, but we see developers getting land and develop it and adapting those technologies from that gate, I think much faster, much easier, instead of having targeting B2C. So I would love to go from B2B instead of going for B2C.
Okay, lovely. Gentlemen, I think we've reached the end of our time here. I would just like to call on Mr. Mustafa. The script's asking me for your last word on the subject of a visionary leader, giving us some ongoing research and innovations. And how do you imagine tomorrow's home and tomorrow's city?
I mean, I think it's not one-man answer. With the contribution of all the gentlemen here, we see there is a huge collaboration between government, public, and private sectors to achieve these goals. So we have many think tanks here like KABSAR, KAUST, and other universities which are trying, I would say, and contributing and providing many innovations. So if we take, for example, NEOM, there are many, I would say, patents are providing from KAUST. So they are implementing many sustainable things. Taking, for example, maybe for instance, using salt water for farming. So I think we have, I would say, a journey. And as Dr. Muhammad, maybe I would like to conclude here, before 2030, many of our goals will be achieved. That's all based on like His Royal Highness Prince Mohammed bin Salman guidance and Vision 2030. Because we have a vision, we have a roadmap, we have strategy to implement it, so it's clear for everyone. We bridge the gap. The change management plan is clear for all, I would say, levels of the community and for the publicity. So the way forward. So we are making it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Everybody, please give the panel a big round of applause. And we had some fantastic insights today. And I would ask all the gentlemen to come to the front of the stage and have a photograph, please. Thank you very much.